He's always been interested in the stars. For as long as I can remember, he spent long nights gazing up into the sky. The sky has all the answers, he used to tell me. That was in the days when he spoke to me. But now he seems obsessed, certain that something important is about to happen, is happening, even as he is watching the sky. They're packing now. There is noise and confusion out in the courtyard. Servants running to and fro, large chests of heaven knows what being hoisted onto dumb animals. He says this new star represents a new king, and they must have gifts suitable for such an important king. He is convinced that they will be able to follow this new star, and it will lead them to a palace. Such is the importance of whoever it is that has been born. He has no idea how long this journey will last, how far it will take him, or when they will return. But what of that? And what of me? He does not have to care for the children, oversee the servants, maintain a large household. He does not know what it is like to wait and watch and wonder what has become of him, what has become of all of them. Yes, of course, I will have to stay at home and wait for his return, trusting to the gods of fate that nothing will befall him or his fellow travellers. I fear that this may prove to be a very long journey indeed.
We three kings of Orient are bearing gifts, we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, west we're leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
My master is a good man, and I have worked for him since childhood. It is my job to do his bidding, whatever he requires. He watches the skies and talks to other important men. I worry what good can possibly come from all this stargazing. I sense something of importance is near, and yet... Quick! I must pack. We are going on a journey, but unlike other journeys, we do not know how far we will travel, or for how long. My master seems quite sure, excited even, despite the hardships that we are certain to face. He says we are going to find a new king. I told you, no good would ever come from all this stargazing. What do I care about a new king? It has been such a long journey, nearly 2 years now since setting off. So many miles between us and home. Will we ever see our loved ones again? My master is convinced we are going in the right direction, supposedly following this one bright star. Certainly it is brighter than anything I have ever seen. But is there anything worth this much hardship? I knew no good would come from all this stargazing. Finally, we have reached a palace. Surely here we will find my master's new king. And hopefully he will be done with all this stargazing. But this palace is an unholy place. The old king is renowned for his cruelty and passionate anger. The servants say there has been no child born here in many years. Is this the end of our journey? Are we to return home shamefaced? My master will be called a fool, no doubt, to have undertaken such a useless journey. You see, I was right to believe that nothing good could come from all this stargazing.
Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again. King forever, ceasing never, over us all to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
Here at the palace of King Herod, we are used to strangers constantly coming and going. As one of the king's chief advisers, I can be called upon night or day for advice and information from the ancient scriptures. However, it is not always a very safe occupation, given the king's dislike of anything which does not uphold what he wants to do. But something seemed different when these men arrived. They did not have the usual air of difference or position. Their excited expectation and request to see the new child born to be king of the Jews sent King Herod into one of his rages. Out of earshot of the visitors, of course. Everyone is on edge when something has upset the king, and the king was definitely upset by these visitors. I would even go so far as to say he seemed frightened. Indeed, so much so, I wasn't the only one summoned that day. Every adviser and seer in his household was sent for, and told to look for any prophecy that foretold of a new king. We found it, of course. There has long been told of God's promised one. Not that he would be born here in a palace, though, but in the small, insignificant town of Bethlehem. Little more than a village, really. We told King Herod in fear and trembling for our lives. He went very quiet, which was even worse than one of his rages. The next day, the travellers were gone, but not before they had a private meeting with the king. He says they are going to return once they have found the child. I am uneasy about what he will do then. Perhaps they really are wise men, and will realize of the danger for everyone if they bring the news back to King Herod. I fear for what Herod is planning for Bethlehem.
Frankincense to offer have I, incense owns a deity nigh, prayer and praising, all men raising, worshiping God most high. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
We've remained in Bethlehem longer than we'd intended. There's been plenty of work for Joseph, but yesterday some visitors arrived. So strange, from such a long way. They said they had been led by a star, and that King Herod's advisers had told them they would find us in Bethlehem. King Herod is not the sort of person you want knowing about you, or taking an interest in your whereabouts, especially when the strangers were calling our Jesus a king, and a king of the Jews at that. I remembered what the angel had said to me before he was born. that he would be great and would be called the Son of the Most High, and God would give him the throne of David. But surely all of that was for when he's grown up, and God would make it possible, and he will be a leader and have followers. But not yet, not when he's still a child, still so small. It's too soon for people to be saying this. Any people, let alone these strangers from far-off countries. They looked so out of place in our home. They were obviously used to grand houses and stately courts. But as soon as they saw Jesus, they knelt down on the ground like they were praying to God. Surely that can't be right. God wouldn't want us to bring Jesus up thinking he's a God, or that he's like God. The commandments tell us we must have no other God. I'm sure it can't be right. And they brought costly gifts, precious gold, rare incense, and myrrh, which they laid before him as an offering. So different to our customs, but what they represented seemed important. They said, gold for a king, incense for a god, and myrrh. I didn't hear that. Just the very mention of myrrh reminded me of the smell of death. I can't think about this anymore. I want to trust God, but I'm so afraid of what is coming.
Myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume, breeze of a life of gathering gloom, sorrow sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in the stone cold tomb. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
The gods returned him to me, and yet he does not seem to have quite returned the same man. He is different. He often stops and looks around as if he doesn't quite know where he is or what it is that he is missing. He often tries to tell me about the journey, the visit to the palace, his misgivings when they met the king, King Herod that is, but the new king was not there. They were advised to travel on just a few more miles to a smaller place, which had importance in previous times. It was in this place they found him, and he was sure, convinced that this was the king, even though the surroundings were not what they had expected at all. No palace there, just an old carpenter with a young wife and a child. A son just the right age to have been born when they first saw the star. He says they entered in, and when they saw the child they knelt in homage, felt compelled to, yet strangely not against their will. It was as if something inside them recognised this king, a king without a country, without a title, at least not one that's permitted in this world. And that's the problem. I feel like he sees another world now, one that we cannot share because he does not have the words to tell. And yet, I feel I recognise something of what he is so desperate to reveal to me, even though, in his eyes, I am only a woman. Whatever it is that he has seen, it is life-changing. And I hope that it may come to be so for me and for many others.
Glorious now, behold him rise, King and God in sacrifice. Alleluia, alleluia, bird to and replies. Oh, right. West we're leading, still proceed.